Hello, YouTube. Hello, X. I hope you're all doing very, very well. Hope the audio is much better on this one. Should be. Hopefully, we'll find out. There's also, so like from my balcony, I can kind of see this like little park thing, and there's, it's really hard to explain, but there's like these little like metal coverings like for shade there. I don't know if they're supposed to be like trees or something, but there's a guy scaling all of them right now, fixing all the lights. So I think he might have been a circus performer in a past life. Anyways, so I wanted to do this space to not necessarily like give a lot of energy to the Archons, because I feel like they do pretty well at doing that regardless. Like their whole MO is to harvest human energy. But it is very important to identify them, to know who they are, what they are, so that we can essentially break the yoke. And that's something that's mentioned in the Gnostic text. I didn't pull that part. I believe it was in the Sophia of Jesus Christ. I did do a little space on that. I didn't record it on YouTube, so it'll be, I can retweet it later. It is a recorded space. Not very long, maybe like 45 minutes. But essentially, in that text, it's detailed that by definitely knowing what humans are, who humans are, and how vital we are and how powerful we are is of utmost importance. But it's also very important to know that the Archons are really not that powerful. And when we identify that, it breaks the yoke of any power that they've had over us. And I believe it should be mentioned in some of these texts that I'll quote in a minute, but it's literally like their whole thing and what they've done and what they're attributed to doing is putting stupors. That's literally what it says in the text, stupors on humanity. And, in one of the texts, it's funny, you can tell it's a dialogue between, whether it's a father and a son, or something along those lines of somebody teaching somebody else. And you have the questions in there of like, oh, well, what's this? What's that? What's this? And one of the questions that's posed is, from the person that's learning, is like, okay, well, what is a stupor? What does a stupor mean? And in these, these are old texts, that I'm reading from. And it says it's a deep forgetfulness, like a deep sort of fog. So when you're feeling foggy or definitely paranoid or fearful, those are all indications that you might have some sort of archontic, you can call it a parasite, I like to call them parasites, just kind of feeding on your energy. It doesn't mean that you have to live in fear of them and be like, oh my God, they're out to get me all the time. It's just like, you have to recognize it for what it is and be like, actually, no, you don't get to do that. And you can literally command them out of your field. And it's very simple. I wouldn't say it's easy. I would say it's simple for humans to do this, because it's, it's just naturally what we do, and it's why they're jealous of us, actually. And it says in these texts a lot that the chief creator, quote unquote, the demiurge, Yadalbaoth, that he is jealous of humanity. He is jealous of the things that we can do, and therefore, the Archons are his creation. So that just kind of passes down. So to summarize, the Archons are essentially, okay, well, let me back it up a little bit. So the Archons are pre-Earth, which, is something that can take a little bit to kind of wrap our minds around. But the Archons came as a result of the birth of the demiurge, who was accidentally created by the Aeon Sophia as she fell from the Pleroma, eventually becoming planet Earth. So that's, the whole Gnostic cosmology in a nutshell. I will be reading from this book at the end. This is not the primary sources I'll be referencing, but I am gonna read a little bit from Not in His Image by Mr. John Lamlash because it's fabulous. And if you are looking for an academic text to really sink your teeth into about this whole topic, everything, Archons, Sophia, Melchizedek, like all of this really amazing information, definitely pick up his book. It is so juicy. There is a glossary and index in the back, which is one of my favorite things about any book, so that I can just be like, oh, I'm looking for the Archons. Okay, I'll go to this page. If you're looking for like a little brief taster introduction, then obviously I recommend my book, The Guidebook to the Goddess, which I didn't even bring out here. Oh my God, it's not even September yet, and it's getting cold. Oh my God. Okay. So let me take a little sippy sip of water. And really what's important here is that we understand that there is a force that is working against humanity, because we do need to know that. Doesn't mean we have to be afraid of it, but we do need to know that. And their only MO is stunting our progress. Like, kind of lame. There's no real meaning behind what they do. If you're watching this later, I am reading from my iPad, and yes, I did write this myself. This is not AI. There's no real meaning behind what they do, or, essentially what the humans that are under their influence do, because they can't really do too much unless they're working through humans. So it's that, it might be an uninformed, but there's some level of consent that goes on. And this is what we see when people make deals with the quote unquote devil or with demons. Demons are Archons, are gray aliens. They're all the same force, just, kind of showing up in different ways. But this is why we see toxic chemicals in random shit. And you'll, like, I remember when I first started to quote unquote awaken, and I remember being like, why is there toxins in everything? Like, what is the means to that end? Like, why? And once I found out about the Archons and being like, oh, literally all they want to do is just stop human life, organic human life, by any means possible, I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. And I did see a post today about China is well on the way to creating an artificial womb. And I clicked through, and somebody obviously asked Grok, was like, oh, is this real? Grok, is this real? And so I read the answer, and apparently it is, from, Grok's perspective, and it's only $14,000. So that's something to look out for sure. But yeah, essentially anything archontic is going to be insane and against human life, because who they follow is insane. The demiurge is insane. And if you've been with me for a while, you know that the demiurge is Yadabaoth, is Yahweh, is the Old Testament God. This is all the same being. And, there are times where I just say, like, you literally can't argue with Abrahamics because their God is insane. And that's who they're getting, their vibe from. It's just insane. And I do believe that there are and I know plenty of well-meaning Abrahamics, and I choose to believe that, they don't really fall into the jealousy trap, whatever, what have you, but it's just such, like, that's the biggest red flag. If your creator is jealous of you, that's, no, like, no. So I am going to read from about 3, I believe, different Gnostic books. These are all found, once again, in the Nag Hammadi codices. So if you missed the last space, the Nag Hammadi codices are contemporary with the Bible, and they were these scrolls of text that were unearthed in 1945 in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. They were found by this family, and one of the family members was about to burn them for kindling, just, I don't know, I guess as one does. And somebody had the thought to be like, wait, like, what is that? And then they found these series of texts and books, and some of them are even written by the same people who have books in the Bible. I will reference at the end here the Apocryphon of John. Now, I don't remember which John it is. I believe that it's the same John that wrote Revelations, is also the who wrote the Apocryphon of John, the secret book of John, it's also called. But alas, last week we did On the Origin of the World, which has incredible details about the Archons and their leader, the Demiurge, the Old Testament god. So if you want like the full spiel of that, go ahead and listen there. It's recorded. It's also up on my YouTube channel. But like I also said in that other recording, On the Origin of the World is my favorite. It's just so good. It's pretty long, and at least with me, it took like several reads to really get through it and get to the, not to the bottom of it, but just to have it resonate. It's kind of one of those things, you know, that at least for me, this is just how I operate. It's like first time I read it, I'm maybe going to see some interesting things, but it's not really going to stick. I kind of have to, you know, marinate in it for a while. So I am going to literally quote from it. I'm just going to read it to you guys because I think that the best way of knowing who the Archons are and like who, you know, might be under the influence of the Archons, even unknowingly, aka anybody that's super devout in an Abrahamic religion. You know, it's nothing new. Like all of these things, like some of them sound very much like, oh, you know, somebody just in the New Age community just, you know, talked about that the other day, but these people are talking about it contemporary with biblical text, you know, so whatever. How long ago that was? 2,000 years ago-ish? Maybe a little less? Okay, so this is On the Origin of the World. The subheading here is the creation of humankind. Quote, before Adam of Light withdrew in the chaos, the authorities, aka the Archons, the authorities is a translation of the Greek word archon. Okay, so if you're reading the Gnostic text and anywhere you see authorities or rulers, that is Archons. They laughed at the chief creator, aka the Demiurge, Yadabaoth, because he lied, saying, I am God, and there is no other God but me. When they, the Archons, came to the Demiurge, they said, is this not the God who ruined our work? Referencing to Adam of Light. The Demiurge answered and said, yes, but if you wish that he not be able to ruin our work, come, let's create a human being from the earth according to the image of our body and according to the likeness of this being to serve us. Sounds like a homunculus. So that whenever this being sees his likeness, he may become enamored of it. Then he will no longer ruin our work, but we shall make those who are born from the light our servants through all the time of this age. Now, all this came to pass according to the forethought of Pistis Sophia, in order that humankind might appear after this likeness and condemn them on account of their fashioned bodies, and their fashioned bodies became fences for the light, or vessels, I would read that as. Then the authorities, aka the Archons, received knowledge necessary to create people. So, you know, Sophia in her big brain is having this forethought and seeing, you know, where the Archons are going with this, because they don't have big brains, they have little tiny pea brains. And she's like, okay, they're going to do this, and then it's going to lead to this, and that's actually what I want. Sophia Zoe, who is with Sabaoth, if you remember from the last episode, this is the Archon who defected once he learned that his creator, the Demiurge, was a liar. Sophia Zoe anticipated them and laughed at their decision because they were blind. In ignorance, they created him against themselves. They do not know what they do, these Archons. They don't know shit. They're stupid. Because of this, she anticipated them. She created her human being first in order that he might tell their fashioned body how to scorn them and thus escape them. Now, the birth of the instructor occurred in this way. When Sophia let a drop of light fall, it floated on the water. Immediately, a human being appeared, being androgynous. She molded that drop first as a female body. Afterwards, she molded it with the body in the likeness of the mother who appeared, and she finished it all in 12 months. An androgynous human being was conceived, whom the Greeks call Hermaphrodite, while the Jews call his mother Eve of life, that is, the instructor of life. Her child is the creature who is Lord. Afterward, the authorities, aka the Archons, called it the beast in order to lead their fashioned bodies astray. The meaning of the beast is the instructor, for it was found to be wiser than all beings. Moreover, Eve is the first virgin who gave birth without a man. She is the one who functioned as her own midwife. Okay, and then I skip a little bit on the origin of the world, but we've got another good mention here. So this subheading is called Error and Ignorance Enter Human History. Dun dun dun! Nobody wants that, but alas. Thanks, Archons, for bringing that. Let us come back to the rulers, the Archons, of whom we spoke, that we might present an explanation of them. For when the seven, don't forget that number, 7 rulers were cast from their quote-unquote heavens, which is just their little fake realms, down upon the earth, they created for themselves angels, many demonic angels, to serve them. But these demons taught humankind many errors, with magic and potions and idolatry and shedding of blood and altars and temples and sacrifices and libations to all the demons of the earth, having as their co-worker Fate, who came into being according to the agreement by the gods of injustice and justice. And thus, when the world came into being, it wandered astray in distraction throughout all time. For all people who are on the earth served the demons from the creation until the consummation of the age, both the angels of justice and the people of injustice. Thus the world came to be in distraction and ignorance and stupor. They all erred until the appearance of the true human. Now, just a note here before I continue. From a Gnostic perspective, there's no sin, really, like as you would understand in the Christian perspective of like, you got to follow all these rules and blah, blah, blah. There is error, and there is making a mistake and not correcting it. You know, that is other than uncalled for murder and harm of other beings of life, obviously that is of utmost importance to Gnostics, but the real focus is correcting mistakes, because humans are going to fuck up. But it's this error of ways, this error that the Archons want, and they want us to continue down that path of error and make no corrections, because you can basically correct at any time. And that's what they don't want you to know. They want humans to keep screwing up and keep making mistakes and never correcting them. Because in that correction, we essentially redeem ourselves. We don't need to outsource that to, the child sacrifice on the cross. We don't need to do that. Okay. So I'm going to read from another book found in the Nag Hammadi Codices. This one is called The Hypostasis of the Archons, which translates as the reality of the rulers. So the subheading here is Samael's sin. Because of the reality of the authorities, aka the Archons, inspired by the spirit of the Father of Truth, the great messenger, referring to the authorities of the darkness, told us that, quote, our contest is not against flesh and blood, rather the archons of the universe and the spirits of wickedness. Where else have I heard that? It's in some freaking movie, isn't it? I have sent you this because you inquire about the reality of the Archons. Their chief, the Demiurge, is blind because of his power and his ignorance and his arrogance. He said with his power, quote, I am God, there is no other God but me. Like, you literally can't deny that this is the Old Testament God. And if there's only one group that is warning against this figure, like, and everybody else is just going along with it. Like, and this is literally what first got me into Gnosticism. I was like, wait, like, yeah, like, that guy sucks, Okay. When he said this, he sinned against all. This speech rose up to incorruptibility. Then there was a voice that came forth from incorruptibility saying, "You are wrong, Samael," that is, God of the blind. His thoughts became blind. And having expelled his power, that is, the blasphemy he has spoken, he pursued it down to chaos and the abyss. His mother, at the instigation of Pistis Sophia, she established each of his offspring in conformity with its power after the pattern of the realms that are above, for by starting from the invisible world, the visible world was invented. As incorruptibility looked down into the region of the waters, her image appeared in the waters, and the authorities, the Archons of darkness, became enamored of her. But they could not lay hold of that image which appeared to them in the waters because of their weakness, they can't create, since beings that merely have soul cannot lay hold of those that have spirit. They were from below while it was from above. So this is interesting here to kind of, we often will see a distinction of, I'm just talking like new agey stuff, or even David Icke, talks about Archons a lot and NPCs as being a person that doesn't have a soul. But here in these Gnostic texts, it's not about the soul, it's about the spirit. It's about the spirit. And as you know, Sophia is the Holy Spirit. And the Archons cannot lay hold of any humans, or really anything at all, unless that human has made a deal and given up their spirit, aka the Holy Spirit, the Sophia dwelling within each and every one of us. Okay. Now, I'm going to... Oh, it just got really windy. I'm going to read from the Secret Book of John, another Gnostic text. This is also called the Apocryphon of John, or the Hidden Book of John. This is regarded in many places as probably the most important Gnostic gospel. I would say it's pretty good. It's a good read. It's pretty long. But obviously, Yadabaoth is in here, and this one is very interesting. There's lots of names in this one, so let me go ahead. The subheading here is Yadabaoth's World Order. Yadabaoth is the first ruler who took great power from his mother, Sophia. Then he left her and moved away from the place where he was born. As an aside, if he had just stayed within his boundary, we would not be where we are today. He didn't stay where he was supposed to, essentially. He took control and created for himself other realms with luminous fire, which still exists. He mated with the mindlessness in him and produced authorities, Archons, for himself. The name of the first is Athoth, whom generations call the Reaper. Remember, I'm reading from these Nag Hammadi texts that are contemporary with the Bible, okay? I know they sound a little current, but they're not. The second is Harmas, who is the jealous eye. The third is Kalila Umbri. The fourth is Yabael. The fifth is Adonaios, who is called Sabaoth. This is the one who defected because he understood that Sophia exists and that the Demiurge is a liar. And it is apparently an option. It's referenced in multiple texts of these that Archons can defect when they essentially just go to Sophia's side. They're like, I want to get with the winning team, ho, The sixth is Cain, whom generations of people call the sun. The seventh is Abel. The eighth is Abrisian. The ninth is Yobel. The 10th is Armupiel. The 11th is Melchior Adonine. The 12th is Belius, who is over the depth of the underworld. Yadabaoth stationed 7 kings, one for each sphere of quote unquote heaven, to reign over the 7 heavens, and 5 to reign over the depth of the abyss. He shared his fire with them, but he did not give away any of the power of the light that he had taken from his mother, for he is ignorant darkness. When light mixed with the darkness, it made the darkness shine. When darkness mixed with light, it dimmed the light and became neither light nor darkness, but rather gloom. This gloomy ruler, I love that. This gloomy ruler has, again, Apocryphon of John. This is, I could be incorrect here, but I believe this is Revelations John that wrote this book as well. There's a couple Johns in, with the Bible. Anyways, this gloomy ruler has 3 names. The first name is Yadalbaoth. The second is Sakla. The third is Samael. He is wicked in his mindlessness that is in him. He said, I am God, and there is no other God but me, since he did not know where his own strength had come from. The rulers created 7 powers for themselves, and the powers created 6 angels apiece until there were 365 angels. Interesting. These are the names in the corresponding appearances. There are also, if you go read this text, you can find a lot more names if you're interested in that. The first is Athoth and has the face of a sheep. The second is Eloios, and he has the face of a donkey. The third is Astapheos. Well, that's a Greek-ass word. And has the face of a hyena. The fourth is Yao and has the face of a snake with 7 heads. The fifth is Sabaoth and has the face of a snake. The sixth is Adonin and has the face of an ape. The seventh is Sabataios and has the face of flaming fire. This is the 7-fold nature of the week. Thank you, Archons, you fucking bastards. For the fucking week. Honestly, I think that the Archons and the 7 Archons and the days of the week just shows you, who has made decisions in the past. It's been people that are under the influence of the Archons, and they just want us all to wage slave, and that slavery, it goes back to the Archons, because I do believe that there are certain groups of people that are enslaved, by the Archons. Do they need to be? No. But have they erred so much to that side, and now they are, and they've, given their lineage to them? Yeah. And they want everybody else to feel it? Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, Dabayoth has many faces, aka he's a shapeshifter. Okay. We gotta remember this. He's not just one face. More than all of these, so that he could show whatever face he wanted when he was among the seraphim. He shared his fire with them and lorded it over them because of the glorious power he had from his mother's light. That is why he called himself God and defied the place from which he came. Okay, so I'm just going to pause here. It's very important to remember, and this is referenced again and again in these texts, that his power is from his mother. We come from that same mother. He was an accident. We are not. So it's important to go right to the source. It's important to connect to this same mother. By doing that, we essentially can circumvent the archontic influence in our lives by literally just going to mom, being like, Mom, they're being annoying again, and then she'll deal with it. One of my Twitter friends, Kermit, is into, the goddess and John Lamlash and this sort of Gnosticism as well. And we were having a little conversation about how Sophia gives these insights, and it seems like these huge downloads. And then he said that she does all the heavy lifting, and it's true. She does all the heavy lifting. You literally just have to direct her and be like, Mom, they're annoying me again. Okay, so this is from the same text. I've just kind of skipped along here. Yadabaoth organized everything after the pattern of the first realms that had come into being, so that he might create everything in an incorruptible form. Not that he had seen the incorruptible ones, rather that the power is in him that he had taken from his mother, produced in him the pattern for the world order. So this would kind of be like you know, if you just had like a natural genetic disposition to maybe, you know, say you were like Monet's son and like you were really good at painting, but you'd never seen your dad's work and you were trying to like replicate it just from genetic memory, like it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same, and it's going to be, you know, I know that's not the best analogy, but essentially Yadabaoth is attempting to create what's going on in the pleroma, but he's doing it blind. He's never seen it. He only has this like slight memory that comes from Sophia that exists within him, and he's trying to create it and be Lord and, you know, the ruler over all of that. But he's just blind. He's just doing this blind, and if only he stayed in his boundaries, you know. When he saw creation surrounding him and the throng of angels around him who had come forth from him, he said to them, I am a jealous God, and there is no other God beside me. But by announcing this, he suggested to the angels with him that there is another God. For if there were no other God, of whom would he be jealous? Again, I didn't make that part up. This is from the Apocryphon of John. Okay, I skip along a little bit here. The first ruler, okay, the demiurge, this is an interesting part. The first ruler regretted everything that had happened through him. Just full regret. Once again, he made a plan to bring a flood upon the human creation, okay? You know, this is, again, tracking with the Old Testament being, this deity of the Old Testament is the demiurge. He is not your creator. It is not the Lord God Almighty powerful. No, he's just a liar. The enlightened greatness of forethought, however, warned Noah. This is the Holy Spirit that's warning Noah. Remember that. It's the Holy Spirit that Noah deals with, not God. God, you know, is the one bringing the flood. Noah announced this to all the offspring, the human children, but those who were strangers to him did not listen to him. It did not happen in the way Moses said they hid in an ark. Rather, they hid in a particular place. Not only Noah, but many other people from the unshakable race, interesting choice of words, they entered that place and hid in a bright cloud. Noah knew about this supremacy. With him was the enlightened one who had enlightened them, since the first ruler had brought darkness upon the whole earth. And I just think that that part is very interesting, that there's just kind of, we can like kind of do a little character mock-up of the demiurge, that he is full of shame, he's full of jealousy, and he's got a lot of regrets. He's just like going into everything blind and fucking everything up. And it's like, actually, if you just stayed where you were supposed to, which was within your boundaries, you wouldn't be feeling these things. Okay, now I'm going to read from a secondary source. I just gotta put my little light on here because I'm outside in the dark. This is, of course, none other than Mr. John Lamlash's Not in His Image. Again, highly recommend this book. He sent this one to me. Oh, well, just a little humble brag there. But it's incredible. He's got a new edition. I would recommend the new edition. Yeah, like I said at the beginning, if you're somebody that's into really juicy information, you really want to sink your teeth into this, buy his book. Absolutely. It's on Amazon. Okay, so I'm going to start reading from page 113. Okay, interesting. There's like a little sentence here. For Gnostics, only a genuine flesh and blood human can guide and teach humanity. Word. Okay. The Gnostics also considered the Son of God, quote, Son of God, to be a delusional idea insinuated into the human mind by a species of apparent non-human entities, or mental parasites, the Archons. These bizarre intrapsychic phantoms are minions of the demiurge, the false creator god, a concept that appears to be unique to Gnostic thought. In their identification of the demiurge with Jehovah, the father god of Jewish and Christian traditions, the Gnostics drew a frontal attack from those who founded their religion on a cherished belief in the male supreme being. Often the attack was violent and sometimes murderous, as in the death of Hypatia, which, if you pick up his book, I believe that's how it starts. He kind of goes over the death of Hypatia and actually her murder, because she was a very enlightened and academic woman and a teacher of the mysteries, and she taught about these important things, and the Christians didn't like it, so they killed her. Modern scholars cannot ignore the fact that Gnostics considered the supreme being of Judeo-Christian religion to be a demented impostor, but they make as little as possible of this outrageous claim. In many scholarly works, the nature and activity of the Archons is simply passed over in silence. True. Yet the scenario of the Demiurge and his weird minions interesting that there's a movie about the minions, figures strongly in the Sophia mythos. The creation myth taught in the Levantine mysteries. Gnostics clearly associated the Archons with what they perceived to be a religious dementia of Judeo-Christianity. But this notion of an, quote, alien implant is so bizarre that scholars are loath to consider it. Dismissing the archontic material and the Nag Hammadi codices gets the experts off the hook because it disobliges them from giving their full and fair treatment to the Gnostic critique of salvationist religion. In short, it saves them from the risk of theological incorrectness. Deception and counterfeiting are signatures of the Archons. Quote, their delight is in deception and their counterfeit spirit, end quote. Apocryphon of John, the same book that I just read from. The Greek apaton denotes willful intent to deceive, and antimimon denotes the method of archontic deception. Literally, counter mimicry. This is why I say to people all the time, like, if you are thinking that the Archons are super powerful, like, they're just tricking you. They're lying. They are liars. They copy. This means to copy something, but to make the copy, the fake version, serve a purpose counter to the original thing or idea. An mRNA vaccine, for example. Interesting that Mr. JLL mentioned that in this. This is his republished version, but it's definitely before. Oh, maybe not. It was just at the beginning of COVID, 2021. He printed it September 2021. He probably added that in there. In their view of human self-deception, a highly sophisticated view comparable to the noetic psychology of our time, Gnostics regarded the divine redeemer as a counter-mimic of their revealer. Pagan adepts from the mysteries in the Levant and Egypt saw the salvationist program of redemption both the evidence and the instrument of archontic deviation. They did not blame the Archons for originating the program, however, but for colluding with the human beings that did. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. So what I'm reading from is probably the next texts I will do, which is not in the Nag Hammadi codices. It is a book by, I don't know if he's a Saint Irenaeus. He's known as like a church father. This is the book Against Heresies. It is very interesting and very telling and details even more because it wasn't so destroyed. It details a lot more of Gnostic thought, and even they detail Sophia's turning into earth, and it's fabulous. It's supposed to be like, oh, these Gnostics and they believe this crazy shit, but like they just detail these beautiful stories, and it's incredible. Anyway, so this is from that book Against Heresies. Quote, Yadabaoth himself chose a certain man named Abraham and made a covenant with him that if his seed would continue to serve him, he would give him the earth as an inheritance. Later through Moses, he brought forth from Egypt the descendants of Abraham, gave them law, and made them Jews. From the 7 gods, also called the Hebdomad, chose their own heralds to glorify each and proclaim Yadabaoth as God, so that the rest of mankind, hearing the glorification, might also serve those who were proclaimed by the prophets as God. Here is the definitive moment in the sacred history of the ancient Hebrews, viewed with a rather unusual spin. The Gnostic warning is explicit. It assigns a completely different value to what transpires between Abraham and the entity he takes for God the Father. Yadabaoth, a made-up word possibly derived from Aramaic who transverses the external space, is the Gnostic code name for the false creator god or demiurge. His realm is the planetary system exclusive of Earth, the hebdomad of 7 planets. In the cosmology of the Sophia mythos, Yadabaoth and his minions arise as a lifeless, distorted mirroring of the divine patterns or celestial archetypes in the pleroma or Godhead. Quote, and she establishes the firmament after the pattern of the realms that are above, for by starting the invisible world, from the invisible world, the visible world was created. They are called the Archons, from the Greek archaea, primal, first, from the beginning, because the formation of their world, the planetary system, subject to organic and mechanical laws, precedes the formation of the living earth. In the Gnostic perspective, the Archons are not only mind parasites, delusional nodes in the human mind, consider quasi-autonomous psychic entities, if you will, they are cosmic imposters. Oh, this page is so good. I'm just going to read the rest of this page, and then if you want to know more, you gotta buy this book. It's just, honestly, I could go on and on. They lack the primary divine factor of enoia, intentionality, creative will. They cannot originate anything. They can only imitate, and they must effectuate their copycat activity with subterfuge and stealth, lest its true nature be detected. Hence, they offer Abraham something that already belongs to him as a member of the human race. Important. The earth has already been given to humanity. It is the precious habitat the goddess Sophia dreamed for the anthropos, humanity, and when she manifested by the metamorphosis of her own divine luminosity. The Archons approach Abraham with a fake deal, bad deal, worst deal. I wish I could do a Trump voice because I would right now. It's the worst deal. Promising him possession and domination of the terrestrial realm. But this is not compatible with Sophia's enoia, her divine intention. The earth is not a territorial prize, but a precious setting where the human species can realize its innate genius, its capacity for novelty, acting within the natural boundaries set by the goddess. The Archons mimic the divine enoia, Sophia's intention, and at the same time, they invert it. In a place of participation in the divine miracle of symbiosis and evolutionary emergence, which is the true birthright of humanity, they promised Abraham a fake sovereignty that works against that birthright and deviates human purpose from its proper course of unfoldment. This is counter-mimicry in action. Anti-mimon is a powerful tool of dispossession. Needless to say, the Apocryphon of John says that the demiurge removed himself from Sophia and moved away from the place where he arose. In other words, the Archons do not respect their proper boundaries in the cosmic order. Hell no. They do not belong to the terrestrial biosphere, but to the planetary system beyond the Earth. But they are invasive and they encourage invasion. The Lord God of the Old Testament called Abraham from the place where he was born, Ur of the Chaldees. Believing himself to be acting on the cause of divine mission, Abraham was dispossessed. He became the leader of a people compelled to dispossess others in an escalating cycle of territorial loss and gain. In a larger sense, all of humanity is dispossessed of its divine birthright by the subterfuge of the Archons, that is, by assuming supremacy as a means of transcendence. This dispossession motif is closely associated with the deific pretension of the Archons. Quote, and the Lord Archon said to the authorities who attend him, come, let us create man according to the image of God and according to our likeness. But here again is a familiar factor of the biblical narrative with a Gnostic twist. The Archons are themselves deluded in believing that they can create humans in their likeness. They do not succeed. The Gnostic materials are explicit in this point, but they insinuate into human minds the belief that they have succeeded. The Abrahamic religions all claim that humanity is special, the one species made in his image. If you want to know more about that, which I do recommend, you got to pick up Not in His Image. I love that book. Yeah, those are all the sources that I brought out, but really, and I'll just share a little bit of, what I believe with the Archons is that they want humans to be scared, to be fearful. And when we exist on that vibration, we unfortunately are accessible to them. And it's literally a matter of choosing not to be in that vibration. And I know that that's not the case in every single circumstance. I understand that I'm generalizing here, but if for one instance you're scared and feeling paranoid in the moment, they are going to do their best to continue that feeling within your field, because that is food for them. That is the louche, and we don't want to feed the Archons. Whenever we can stop it, we can. We want to switch to neutrality. If you're ever feeling like you're, under an archontic attack or feeling really scared or fearful, you just gotta connect to nature, baby. Like, you gotta connect to a tree, you gotta get grounded, you gotta at least get to neutral, so that from there, the goddess in all her incredible ways, she does do the heavy lifting. She can help us. But if we are stuck in fear and paranoia, then she could be standing right in front of us and we're not going to see her because we are blind like the Archons. The Archons want us to be blind. But by our nature, we are not. And, and I hope that this episode, this Sophianic sermon, has shed some light on the Archons and, who they are, and the fact that they're really not that powerful. They don't have power. The only power that they have, which is a sliver of power, comes from the same mother that we come from, the Gnostic Aeon Sophia, who is here as Gaia Sophia, our planet Earth, and that they are good liars. So you got to be able to, see through the bullshit. And one thing that I think most people who have taken any plant medicine realize is that Sophia is there. The mother is right there. Mother Ayahuasca, whatever you want to call her, she's there. She's always telling us that there's nothing to be scared of. And when we really lean into that and we really trust the goddess, Earth, if you will, infinite intelligence, if you want, cosmic goddess, sure, Shakti, the shock goddess, when we can lean into that, it naturally insulates our field from archontic intrusion. So, I'm going to stop my YouTube recording. Goodbye, YouTube.